Support for the Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you in part by University of Idaho, Idaho's only Carnegie R1 classified research university. Our Carnegie R1 designation recognizes the discoveries we make that help our forests thrive. It means we're creating more doctors and doing real research to strengthen cybersecurity for Idaho businesses, our energy sector, and every Idahoan. More at go.uidaho.edu/Idaho-is-Idaho.
Laws are being drafted and debated at the State House right now. Laws that will likely affect your everyday life as an Idahoan. The Connector helps you keep up with the legislative session with clear reporting, local context, and explanations that make it all make sense. Stay connected to the State House with the Connector, Idaho Daily News. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
From the studios of Boise State Public Radio News, I'm Gemma Gaudette. This is Idaho Matters. So where's all the snow? You may have noticed there's been a significant lack of snow in parts of Idaho, as well as in the Treasure Valley. In fact, we've had snow just twice this winter, and both times here in the Treasure Valley, it was here and then gone so fast that we barely noticed it. And it's been so much warmer this winter. According to BoiseDev.com, Pocatello hit a record high of 57 degrees on Christmas, and meteorologists were originally predicting a La Nina winter with cooler weather and more snow. Instead, it's been 50 degrees in Boise for much of January and into February. So we're devoting today's entire show to asking these questions. What's happening with the weather? How is this impacting our ski resorts, and what's happening to the snow-based economy that so much of our state depends on this time of year? So joining us now are some of the folks who have been asking those questions, and they're doing something about it. Ethan Sims is here. He's Executive Director of Idaho Clinicians for Climate and Health. Sam Murray, an intern with the group and an alumni of Boise's Youth Climate Action Council. And Zoe Sims, who was on the council last year. She's an avid Nordic skier as well. I want to welcome all of you to Idaho Matters.
Thank you so much, Gemma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ethan, let me begin the conversation with you today. Can you remind everyone, what is the Idaho Clinicians for Climate and Health?
Sure. So we're a group of clinicians, which includes physicians and pharmacists, nurses and nurse practitioners, healthcare administrators, and other hospital workers who are coming together to educate ourselves and our communities that we serve that climate change is a health problem, not a political issue, because we see that healthcare is greatly impacted and impacts climate change through the way we practice medicine. And more than 200 medical journals in 2021 said that climate change is the greatest threat to human health. And so we're trying to act on that knowledge, not on some partisan issue, to educate people about why climate change is so important.
And Sam, can you tell us about the Youth Climate Action Council and why you wanted to be a part of it?
Yeah, so the Youth Climate Action Council is an organization through the city of Boise, which involves young high school kids and allows them to give their perspective on climate issues at a city level. So I originally wanted to join the Youth Climate Action Council because I wanted to provide my perspective on climate issues and connect with other like-minded high school students from other schools and work towards a common climate project, which each year for the Youth Climate Action Council, we connect with a different branch of city government and tackle a climate issue in the city.
And Zoe, why did you want to be on the Youth Climate Action Council? You're a former member, as I mentioned.
Yeah, similarly to Sam, I think the opportunity to connect with people who are like-minded was really important to me, but also, having grown up in Idaho and also a bit in New Mexico, I've been able to notice a lot of the effects of climate change, especially with like really hot summers and warmer winters, which is really affecting skiing. And additionally, the Youth Climate Action Council through the city of Boise was also doing these grant projects where high school students could apply for grants to run environmental projects. And I did a few of those, and through that got introduced to the Youth Climate Action Council.
So, Ethan, I think it's fair to say we hear the term climate change a lot, right? And a lot of people talk about it, but your group has actually decided to try and be part of the solution. In fact, you're bringing together climate scientists and youth activists and ski resorts at the Egyptian Theater in Boise. Can you talk to us about the Climate Change is Snow Joke event that's coming up?
Yeah. So Thursday, the 19th of February at the Egyptian Theater, we're bringing 14 community organizations together to lobby in the Egyptian. And then we're showing three films from Protect Our Winters about how climate change is impacting snow loss and how that snow loss is impacting our communities. And then also talk about how we as outdoor enthusiasts are driving climate change through some of the activities we're doing. And then a third film will talk about how young people are being impacted in terms of their access to the sport they love and how that's impacting their mental health, and how they can take action. Because we know that there's tons of evidence that taking action is the best way to counter the despair that a lot of the young people, and in fairness, a lot of people that I talk to are responding to this loss of snow that we're seeing this year. I think people have responded when I talk about how warm and dry this winter has been with a dichotomy of responses, either to have just abject despair about how there's no snow and they miss skiing, or to just kind of deny that the problem is actually happening and say it's just a blip. And that's what really motivated me to try to get some people together to tell us, what the science is saying about snow loss, and what we're doing that's impacting it, and then what we can do to make a difference going forward.
And Ethan, you mentioned these films are produced by Protect Our Winters. What does this organization do?
Yeah, so POW, as it's called, is a group that was founded by, I think he's a professional skier, who realized that years ago that he was starting to see snowpack go away and trends that were suggesting that there'd be no snow at elevations less than 6,000 feet by as early as 2050. And this was personal to them because it's a sport they love that needs snow. But then started realizing that there were all these other effects associated with snow loss, like worsening drought, increased risk of flooding, ironically, because of lack of snow. And then other things we see from a scientific standpoint, like increased risk of infectious disease spreading because the insect that harbor diseases aren't being killed off by colder temperatures, or there's migration of insects causing infectious diseases to become more common in different areas. And so now POW is not just a group of athletes that are talking about climate change and how it impacts their sport. They've also organized climate scientists and scientists from across the climate spectrum to talk about the expert knowledge they bring to the table, about how we can be good advocates to protect snow.
Sam, in your opinion, what can younger people do to help find climate solutions?
Yeah, I think that climate change is a very global issue, and it's not going to be solved at a global level. It's going to be solved at a local level, by splitting up the different problems that climate change causes and the reasons for climate change um, into smaller issues, which can then be solved. I think for young people, there's plenty of ways to get involved. And I think it all starts with um, communication and talking with fellow peers. And then the next step is making personal choices. I think as young people, we need to be cognizant of our individual choices, whether that's what clothes we're buying, what foods we're buying, which companies we decide to support with our money and our time. And I think the next step from there is getting involved with an organization or organizing something yourself. I think that there's so many great nonprofits and people that are always looking for volunteers. And if you see a problem, you can always just start on your own. If there's a piece of trash, pick it up. And yeah, I think that climate change is an issue that is going to have to be faced by the younger generation. And it's a problem that we're going to need to solve, or we're going to have to deal with the repercussions for the rest of our generation.
And so, why do you think it's important to find solutions to climate change, in particular, younger people getting active and getting involved?
I mean, I think it's super important that we can preserve the things that make Idaho, Idaho. I mean, like the accessibility that we have to nature is something that we can't always take for granted. And like the ability to grow up on skis that I've had and a lot of my friends have had is also something we've taken for granted. But I mean, in the future, I want my kids to be able to ski too. So we need to take action to make sure that can happen because if we don't do anything, then that might not be a reality that we can actually see come to place.
And we've been speaking with Ethan Sims. He's executive director of Idaho Clinicians for Climate and Health. Sam Murray, an intern with the group and an alumni of Boise's Youth Climate Action Council, and Zoe Sims, who was on the council last year. We're talking about snow today, or the lack of snow in Idaho this winter, and the unseasonably warm weather that's been causing problems for ski resorts here in our state. And if you have a question about the weather, there's no better place to find an answer than Jay Breidenbach. He is the warning coordination meteorologist for NOAA's National Weather Service Forecast Office in Boise. He's been with the National Weather Service for 30 years, and he was Boise's senior hydrologist from 2001 to 2011. So he knows a few things about Idaho's weather. Hi, Jay.
Hi, Jim. Great to be with you again.
Really good to have you back on the show. So, Jay, what in the world is going on with snow this winter? I mean, where is it? Because it is certainly not in the Treasure Valley.
Yeah, it's been a crazy winter. The storm track has taken this odd pattern where it's driving the storms way up into Canada, north of Idaho, and then bringing them down along with the cold air into the eastern United States. So that's kept snow levels really high this year. And when we've had a storm come through, it's fallen as rain instead of snow, even in the mountains, until you get way up into the highest elevations, and that's where at least some of our snow is.
So, I mean, Jay, along with the lack of snow, it's warm in the Treasure Valley this winter. I mean, for example, Boise Dev reported that Boise hit 59 degrees on January 3rd. That actually broke the record high temperature. That was 58 degrees, but it was set all the way back in 1876. So, how warm has it been, and what are the temperature trends in other parts of Idaho? I mean, you said, I mean, we have to get way up in the elevation to actually feel winter right now.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's the fifth record high that we've had in Boise so far this winter, and gosh, that's 15 degrees above normal. Our normal high today is only 44 degrees. So at least with this front that's come through recently, we're getting a little bit closer to that, but 15 degrees above normal. That's pretty pretty insane. And you look back the last 5 years, we've had 30 record highs that we've set, and only one record low back in 2022. So, and part of that's happening this year is related to where the jet stream is. And we were looking at what was happening in the ocean. We were, as skiers, we were kind of excited about La Nina because usually that brings an active weather pattern through the state, and you get kind of that zonal flow that brings the storms right off of the ocean, and it's a little cooler, and you get the snow even down in Boise. And this year the atmosphere didn't cooperate. It kind of locked into that ridge over the West.
I mean, Jay, yet the East Coast, right? I mean, a huge part of the US is just being pounded with these winter storms. But then, you're here in Idaho, and this feels a lot different than other winters. So, I mean, we've seen warm winters in the past, but so how does this particular winter compare to those previous seasons that were a bit on the warm side? Because we've seen winters where we haven't seen a lot of snowpack either.
Yeah, that we're approaching the warmest on record. So, month of December, in the National Weather Service, we often talk about meteorological winter, December, January, and February. So, December, 9.5 degrees above normal. That's for the whole month. Yes, we had some cooler days and even warmer than that, extreme, but 9.5 for the whole month. January, 1.4 degrees above normal for the whole month in Boise. And that would have been a lot warmer if we didn't get into that inversion pattern, the pattern that we hate, where it's beautiful in the
Hmm.
mountains. You look down at the clouds from Bogus, and but down in the valley we're inverted. We had that happen this year, and so that kind of only held us to 1.4 degrees above normal. But then we get into February, we didn't really see the fog and stratus cloud set up so much. So we're back above nine. We're at 9.1 degrees above normal so far in the month of February. So very extraordinary. One of the warmest on record.
So, Jay, warmer weather means rain instead of snow. So, what is that doing to our snowpack right now?
Well, I would say that we're in a snow drought, and the worst I've seen. Um, just looking across the state of Idaho, almost the entire state has below normal snowpack. And one of the ways we look at snow is we try to figure out how much water is in that snow, so the snow water equivalent. And if you compare what that looks like to a normal year, say in the Boise Basin, we're sitting at 41% of average right now in the Boise Basin. Going a little further north up into the Payette Basin, where Tamarack and Brundage are 64% of normal. So just a little better than half of what you would normally have for snowpack. And that's the case statewide. The only area that's doing a little bit better is way up in the headwaters of the Big Wood and Big Lost River, because it's such high elevation. You're about 90 to 100% of normal, just because that's where it fell as snow. And
Mm.
if you were to look at just how much precipitation fell, it would be a little closer to normal, but that ran off into our streams and did not accumulate as snow.
So, speaking of lack of snow, I want to bring in Lee Parton right now, who is an environmental economist and associate professor of economics at Boise State University. Hi, Lee, and thanks for joining us.
Hi, Gemma. Thank you for having me.
So, can you talk to us real quick? What does an environmental economist do?
Essentially, we try to understand what the environment means to society, both in kind of well-being terms and monetary terms, and how we interact with the environment, and also our impact on the environment around us.
So, Lee, one of the things you look at is how changes in the environment and recreational opportunities like skiing impact local communities. So, what happens when we have a year like we're having right now?
Well, when we have a year like we're having right now, it disrupts a lot of recreation plans. We've seen in the news of people canceling trips due to lack of snow or changing where they're going. Maybe they head out east or go to Vermont versus coming to Idaho or Utah, where snow levels have been, historically low. And what inherently that does is we're talking about changing the quality of the experience. And so people when the quality of something drops, they're just not willing to pay for it. And so they find substitutes and they start substituting into other experiences like a different resort or maybe some other form of recreation. And we look at measuring what that means and kind of value economic well-being type of impacts to those people who who participate in that type of winter recreation, such as skiing or backcountry skiing or snowboarding.
So, Lee, what about the economics then? And what I mean by that is the economic impact of climate change on winter sports.
Well, we know in Idaho, skiing, the winter recreation industry, the ski industry is contributes over $200 million a year to the economy across the U.S. That's in the billions. And we really try to understand and measure what that does to not just local economies, the things we think about, like if resorts open later, they have to furlough employees, or they can't open for the season, or revenues are impacted. That impacts restaurants, the people who would have been employed there, seasonal workers, ski patrol, management, ability to make improvements on the mountain for future years due to lack of revenue. So that's one path. And then the other path is kind of that societal well-being. It's like, what does it mean for us to not be able to ski at our local ski hill? That's a real cost to those populations that utilize that resource and participate in that type of recreation. So there have been some studies, looking at Airbnb bookings and changes in snowpack, and there's a 2022 study by Partham and Christensen showing that by the end of the century, there could be damages from just cancellations of Airbnbs or going to other short-term rentals, or people not taking trips to specific resorts, of upwards of $2 billion a year in the United States, just in the ski resort towns, just along that one dimension, not thinking about restaurants and other workers, as if the quality of the ski experience drops enough.
So, Lee, you mentioned societal well-being and the impacts of it, and my understanding is you actually study this as well. So, how do you study this sort of thing? I mean, you talked about that economic impact, right? But how do you study how this impacts society?
That's a great question. We have a lot of tools, and I do a lot of what we call non-market valuation, and I try to measure the value of things that we don't buy and sell. Like we book an Airbnb, and if we cancel it, we can say, "Oh, that was X number of dollars for that week gone," if it's not rebooked.
Mm,
What I look at is something like, how do people substitute? So I'm just going to use the example of Bogus and Brundage. If Bogus is my local hill and it's a low snow year, that's where I would use, or if it's a good snow year, that's where I would go. That's where I have my season pass. But if we have a low snow year and there's not a lot of snowpack, the whole mountain's not open, maybe now I'm driving to Brundage instead. Now, that trip, it may not sound like a lot, but there's a real cost associated with that, just in time, gas, me traveling up there, hauling the family up there. I actually look at measuring those types of substitutions and say, oh, well, now a ski trip costs Lee Parton an extra $100 per trip because of the time involved. And then we can equate
mm.
that across the population to dollars and say, oh, well, in this scenario, with this type of snowpack, we are going to cost people an extra, however many dollars across the population to be able to participate in the activities that they enjoy. Or maybe we substitute that's something that's completely different, such as indoor recreation, that is nowhere near as valuable to us or brings us near as much joy or happiness that we enjoy as much.
Lee, is there anything like impact wise that we aren't thinking about, and not just in terms of, skiing and the impact on skiers and resorts?
I think it's important to keep in mind what's top headline news here is, or that we think about, is what is the impact of this across the spectrum when we think about what we would call ecosystem services or the natural environment. So our minds go to things like increased fire risk, low water, what happens to growers in the Treasure Valley if we have a low water year. That's a real economic impact too, that has lots of spillover effects across lots of different sectors of the economy. So it's not just about the skiers like me that like to go up to Bogus and have a great time. But it's about a lot of other people in the Treasure Valley across the West, that are impacted by really low snowpack years, and that trickles through our economy.
So, Jay, let me bring you back into the conversation. What does the rest of the winter look like snow wise? I mean, will we actually get any winter weather in our winter, or are we going to go straight into spring? Or, is winter going to hit in April?
Gosh, Jim, as a skier, I'm hoping that it changes. And in the in the Weather Service, we are starting to see some signs that that pattern, that big ridge, is breaking down, and hopefully he's going to shift and bring more storms into the Pacific Northwest. The National Weather Service Climate Prediction Center is also seeing that same trend. And if you look at the 18 to 14-day outlook, temperatures are likely to be in the normal, maybe even below normal temperature range with above normal precipitation. Um, the concern is that with this massive snow drought, it might be a little too late. But maybe we'll still get some terms up there in the snow.
Well, I want to thank both of you so much for this conversation. We've been speaking with Jay Breidenbach. He is the warning coordination meteorologist for NOAA's National Weather Service forecast in Boise, along with Lee Parton, an environmental economist and associate professor of economics at Boise State University. We've been discussing our unusual winter weather and the impacts it's having on Idaho. Mountain areas have delayed opening and limited ski runs. And as climate change makes snowfall inconsistent, Bogus Basin is banking on a new way to keep the slopes blanketed in snow and the chairlifts running. Jamie Geary visited the resort to see the rollout.
Over Thanksgiving weekend, most of the Boise Ridge Mountains were barren, except one patch of snow where skiers and snowboarders were taking a conveyor lift and gliding downhill into a snow-covered terrain park.
And we had 9 terrain park features and a little turning lane.
Austin Smith is the director of innovation at Bogus Basin. He points at a roped-off area with half-buried snowboard rails. It was opened thanks to the basin's secret weapon, a pile of snow they stored last year that stayed frozen over the summer. Nate Shake, the director of snowmaking operations, says the plan was hatched at the end of last season.
I talked to the snowmakers and I was like, just start making snow up there. And we picked a spot. We called it Project X. We just made a giant pile of snow.
Global temperatures are hitting record highs each year. Nonprofit Climate Central reports annual snowfall is decreasing across 2/3 of the U.S. over the last 5 decades. That makes it harder to tell when there will be enough snow to open rec areas. To make up for the uncertainty, Smith says most destination snow resorts in the West, including Bogus, are relying on snowmaking to start the season. The nonprofit recreation area has been using snowmaking guns since 2018. But Smith says warm temperatures are making the process difficult.
Almost the entirety of November, we weren't able to make snow, which is pretty unusual.
Fewer than a dozen of its 92 trails opened before January. So how did the terrain park open with minimal snowfall? For that, we have to go to a country where there's snow up to 7 months a year.
My name is Mikko Martikainen. I'm coming from Finland. I'm a snow specialist.
In this Wall Street Journal video, Martikainen talks about making and storing snow for the Sochi Winter Olympics in 2014.
I've been loving to work with the snow. It's my life. After my wife, it's my second love.
The so-called snow whisperer started saving the frozen flakes with a centuries-old technique, wood shavings. Next, he experimented with rolls of insulation, his ultimate goal to preserve snow over summer and into the next winter. Martikainen partnered his private company SnowSecure with insulation manufacturer FinFoam to make snow blankets, polystyrene panels that fold out like an accordion and can cover up to a football field. Bogus Basin Smith again.
Those panels are like foam insulated panels. They're vinyl wrapped. They have full hinge system in them for deployment, and they strap together and Velcro together.
Bogus stumbled upon SnowSecure by chance last April.
I believe our general manager saw it on Instagram and, bumped our director of operations, said, hey, look at this. And he goes, I'll do some digging. And he set up a phone call.
SnowSecure CEO Antti Lauslahti answered the call from Finland.
We were like, wait, we could actually do this.
So the basin's crew, dubbed the Snow Sorcerers, began Project X. They used machines to create a giant mound of snow, dense enough to cover about 400 feet of the resort area. Then, Lauslahti flies to Bogus to help the magic happen. In a YouTube video, he stands next to the blanketed pile.
Our material, when there's no gaps, then there's no air, and when there's no air, it doesn't melt.
The snow mound is about the size of a small aircraft hangar. It stayed frozen under the insulation through the summer, even as the blanket's surface temperature reached over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. When Bogus uncovered the pile in October, 80% of the snow was still there. When temperatures hit record highs, the storage came in handy.
We weren't even in a position to start making snow yet on our beginner run, so we pushed the pile down even lower on the coach's corner, flattened it out next to our 300-foot long conveyor lift, and then built a terrain park and used that for our opening weekend.
Snow Secure won't replace snowmaking. To Lausladi, they're a piece of the puzzle to help resorts open as climate changes.
It's not like a curiosity. It's like a one tool in the toolbox in the future.
And resorts all over the West are looking for solutions.
Both December and November were so warm that we weren't able to blow snow, so we were totally reliant on Mother Nature's snowfall.
That's Lexi Dowdle of Utah's Alta ski area. It's known for its legendary powder and for getting more snowfall than any other mountain resort in the Rockies. Still, it started spraying slopes with artificial snow in 2006. Like many rec areas, Alta and Bogus both do terrain modification, changing the shape of the ski slopes.
We call it detuning the slope, so making that surface less of a gully and more of like a flat plane. That allows us to open that run with less snow.
Bogus Basin is the first in the country to work with the Finnish company. On my call with Lausladi, he told me he's getting lots of requests from North America.
During this call, I have had 2 calls from USA that I didn't answer. One of them I can see it's a prospect who now probably says that they will start buying.
Snow Secure's blankets made Time Magazine's 2025 Best Invention list last year. Austin Smith calls Project X a success and says Bogus is ordering more. The goal?
Storing enough snow to open our coach chairlift top to bottom on stored snow on demand.
That means the nonprofit could open an entire ski trail from top to bottom by Thanksgiving weekend without any natural snow from the sky. Jamie Geary, Boise State Public Radio News.
Well, we're talking about snow today, or the lack of snow in Idaho this winter, and the unseasonably warm weather that's been causing problems for ski resorts here in our state. So joining us now are Nate Collins. He's the Sustainability and Stewardship Coordinator with Bogus Basin. Rochelle Leishman, she is the Sustainability Manager and Executive Administrator at Brundage Mountain, along with Sarah Dwiggins, Senior Manager in Marketing of Smart Wool and Icebreaker. I want to welcome all 3 of you to the program. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
And Nate, let me begin our conversation with you. How is skiing at Bogus Basin right now?
It's less than we're used to, but the skiing's pretty good because we've made a lot of snow. We've committed a lot of resources to doing that, and so we have about 20% of our terrain open. But what we do have open is really fun, and people have been really enjoying it.
So Nate, as you said, about 20% of your terrain is open. I mean, we're in the second week of February. How unusual is that to only have 20% of the mountain running this time of year?
It's very unusual. Yeah, we'd be expecting to have the backside open by now, and we don't have snowmaking on the backside yet, but so it's just front side right now.
And Nate, how late of a start did Bogus get this year?
Well, we opened on November 29th, and that is pretty normal for us, and that was largely on the stored snow that we had from last year. That said, we struggled to even find, reach a normal operating capacity through that first month or so. We were open through December, but there wasn't we didn't have good conditions for making snow, and so it was certainly a lot less than usual.
Mm-hmm. And Rochelle, same question for you. How is skiing at Brundage this season?
Luckily, we have had really good snow conditions. We have been 100% open for quite some time. We opened on December 21st, and skiing has been really fun, but we have not had the historical snowfall that we typically have.
Mm-hmm. And you said you opened December 21st, Rochelle. Is that fairly common? Do you usually open that late?
We typically open the day after Thanksgiving. That's when we want to open every year.
And before we talk about sustainability, I want to bring in Sarah into the conversation. Sarah, as I mentioned, you are with Smart Wool and Icebreaker. Can you tell us about your company? Because a lot of people might be wearing your socks right as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. With both Smartwool and Icebreaker, we were founded in the ski industry with our merino wool performance apparel. But we have a commitment to our environmental stewardship and sustainability. And so since 1995, both of our brands have championed natural fiber clothing and responsible sourcing. So we've actually partnered with Protect Our Winters for several years to support that mission by funding, whether it's research or education around the impacts of climate change, because they share our vision that change comes through action.
And Sarah, my understanding is that last year you partnered with Altura Mountain Company, and they have 19 ski spots around the U.S. and Canada. And you did this to bring wool socks and thermal underwear to the slopes. So, how important is the ski industry to your company?
That's a great question. The ski industry is really at our core. Both of our brands, as I mentioned, they were both started in 1995, about an ocean apart. So Smartwool was founded in Steamboat Springs by ski patrollers with cold feet, while Icebreaker was founded in New Zealand and wanted to create this new category of performance apparel focused on merino wool base layers. So we've really had to evolve our business to understand the changing landscape, but the ski industry is at the core of our business and how we were founded and what we still pride ourselves on today.
I'm not giving a plug for your company, but I will tell you that I have a pair of Smartwool socks by my bedside every single night because I have the coldest feet in the world, and I wear them all year round, Sarah, at night.
Well, we love to hear that.
So I want to talk more about sustainability. And Rochelle and Nate, you're both involved with sustainability at your resorts. So I want to talk about how you're responding to climate change. And Rochelle, let me start with you. Can you talk about Brundage and your greenhouse gas inventory? First off, what is that?
So think of a greenhouse gas inventory as a structured way to measure where climate warming gases are coming from and how much is being emitted, which gave us the baseline to where our emissions come from and where actions would matter most. So what surprised us the most is that employee commuting made up of 61% of our total emissions. And that's where we had the biggest lever. So once we had that data, we acted. We really enhanced our carpool program, which puts money back in the employees' pockets by directly reimbursing them with cash on their paychecks. We continue our free shuttle services with our partnership with Treasure Valley Transit from McCall and New Meadows, and is free for our guests and employees, and launched a new partnership with an app called TreadShare, which matches riders to carpool from Boise and nearby communities up to Brundage.
Wow. So Rochelle, how can you use this kind of thing then to make a difference? I mean, have you been seeing a difference, especially with the carpooling and the commuting?
Yeah, so you take this data and you can really make an impact because you measure the data every 2 years. And so this year we'll do another greenhouse gas inventory and we'll take this data and just see what our impacts are by boosting our transportation and making the needle go down.
So, Nate, I know transportation is a really big concern for Bogus. I mean, we hear a lot about traffic jams getting to the mountain, but you're also looking at how all of these cars affect the climate. So, how is Bogus working, Nate, to reduce the number of cars and their emissions coming to the resort?
Yeah, for us, our number one source of emissions is our guests driving up and down the mountain. It's 47% of our emissions. So it's a substantial portion. And the other association with traveling up and down the mountain is challenges with parking and driving up and down the road. So by trying to tackle transportation, we can it's kind of a two birds, one stone sort of situation. So we have implemented a number of carpooling incentives because right now we're seeing on the weekends about 2 people per car. And if we can get that up to 3 people per car, that'll be a 17% reduction in emissions and probably 1,200 additional parking spaces. So yes, we do the carpooling incentives. You can win a season pass just by carpooling and using the TreadShare app that Rachel mentioned earlier. We have weekend buses, a bus that runs one up, one down, and we get okay ridership on that. We'd love to see more, and I think what everyone would like to see is like a robust, consistent bus system that's going up and down the mountain multiple times a day. And so we've been looking into that. We're not quite ready for us because it's very expensive. We're talking $600,000 a year to run a robust busing system. Yeah, so it's certainly a challenge, and it's one of our biggest things that, like, as a community, we can help to pull together, and just adding another person to your car. And as Rachel mentioned, if you use the TreadShare app, you can find other folks who are headed up to the mountain.
Sarah, you funded one of the films at the upcoming Climate Change's Snow Joke event at the Egyptian in Boise. What film and why did your company find it important to get involved?
Yeah, so Icebreaker partnered with Protect Our Winters to fund the documentary called Downstream. And this was really to drive education and shed light on some of the downstream effects of climate change. As athletes and outdoor enthusiasts, many people are already aware of the effect of melting glaciers on the business and the sport itself. But it's so much bigger than that, that beyond kind of these beloved landscapes, the loss of these upper mountain water towers is the threatens of the resources that we depend on for drinking water, food, and energy. So the documentary really dives into some of the research that supports the downstream effects. So we explore how glacial retreat is impacting the regions across 3 different continents by following these real life stories and making scientific data accessible and more relatable to a broader audience.
I have just about 2 minutes left. And Sarah, I want to know how a warm winter like this ultimately impacts your business.
Yeah, it has a significant impact. Over the past several years, we've had to adapt our business to be broader than just the ski and snowboard communities. But we also want to make sure that we're supporting it through initiatives that drive awareness. But the short answer is it does, but we have been able to change our strategic go-to-market plan to focus on the benefits of merino wool outside of warmth, to be able to speak to a broader audience that can wear our product more year round.
And Nate, how big of an impact is the lack of snow right now for Bogus Space and bottom line?
It's certainly a big impact. Like, we prepare so that we can weather these types of seasons financially, and we have invested a lot of money into snowmaking and snow storage. And so, but it's still a significant impact, and I think we would love to see everyone, the entire community, back up here again. We've had a good deal of people up here who are having a lot of fun, but those of you who aren't are missing out.
And Rochelle, maybe on the flip side, how's Brundage doing? Because your entire mountain is open. I mean, are you seeing more people on the mountain than usual?
I wouldn't say we're seeing more people on the mountain, but it really does show that this winter the variability is it's really tough on ski resorts. Unpredictability is really hard for operations. It affects staffing, snowmaking decisions, grooming schedules, and guest planning. And financially, variability really increases risk for ski resorts that really rely heavily on consistent snow conditions. And we just don't know what's going to happen, and it's really hard for planning. So it's our job is really to adapt and diversify operations and build resilience so we can keep delivering great winters even in a changing climate.
Well, I want to thank all of our guests today for taking time to chat with us, and special thanks to Ethan Sims with Idaho Clinicians for Climate and Health for all of his help on today's show. Remember, the Climate Change is No Joke event happens at the Egyptian Theater on February 19th in Boise with our very own George Prentice emceeing the film festival. This is the Idaho Matters podcast. I'm Gemma Gaudette.
Hi, it's Terry Gross, host of Fresh Air. Hey, take a break from the 24-hour news cycle with us and listen to long-form interviews with your favorite authors, actors, filmmakers, comedians, and musicians, the people making the art that nourishes us and speaks to our times. So listen to the Fresh Air podcast from NPR and WHYY.